Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that most of the things I make are made with either epoxy resin or Aqua Cast water-based eco resin. And I love them both, but there's one thing that I don't like about epoxy resin. Sometimes when you're making decorative items, such as bowls or trays, they look wonderful when they're in position, but when you pick them up, they feel very light and it kind of makes them feel cheap to me. I don't know why, it just does. In my head, it looks like it should be heavy and it causes like a contradiction in my mind when I pick it up and it's light. So today I'm going to be using Aqua Cast Black in my new large trinket tray mould from Moulds and Shapes to create a nice heavy tray. And then I'm going to be adding epoxy resin on top to give the look of epoxy resin with the weight of Aqua Cast. I will also be adding a beautiful Seashell Veneer mosaic design. If that all sounds interesting, stay tuned and enjoy the video. So this is the silicone mould I'll be using today, and it's a brand new design from Moulds and Shapes, and as usual the quality is excellent. It's a very heavy mould. And now I'm going to weigh out my Aqua Cast Black. I've already worked out the volume of the mould by filling it with water and weighing it at the same time, then using that weight in the volume calculator on the Elichem website, which tells you exactly how much you need for all the different aquacast products. I've got my table protected and my gloves on because Aqua Cast Black makes a lot of mess. It's so highly pigmented to make it so black that, you know, that colour can get everywhere if you're not careful. So yeah, make sure you have lots of protection in your work area. Since the launch of Aqua Cast Black from Elichem Resins, it's sold out several times, and I know they're working hard to keep stock in, and yeah, don't be disappointed if you go along to get yourself some and it's all gone. They do keep selling out super quick, but it's definitely worth a try because this stuff is excellent. Once I'd weighed out my water into my silicone jug, I added the Aqua Cast powder a bit at a time, so you know I got the measurements precise, and then gave it a really good stir with the new stirring stick which I got, which came with my Aqua Cast Black powder. It mixes up very quickly and easily, but do be careful to make sure you don't have any lumps in there. Even when it looks completely smooth, keep going for a little while longer just to make sure. Once it was all mixed, it was just a case of pouring it into the mould, and that was very straightforward. Once it's in the mould, you do need to give it a good wobble around. You know, pick up the sides of the mould and shake it a bit, tap your table, all of that. And you can even go around the edges with a micro brush or, you know, something that's not going to scratch the mould, just to make sure there's no air bubbles or pockets of air trapped in the details of the mould. But this one is quite a simple mould, so there's not too many places for air to get trapped, which is nice. I find it works best if you half fill the mould. Don't fill it up completely to the top and then, you know, do all the flicking of the sides before completely filling it up. Then you don't make a big mess. I had some left over, which was good because I wanted to try out my new tiny turner pigments from Toonpish Crafts, which I was very kindly sent by Wendy. I wanted to test them out with Aqua Cast Black. to see how well it would pick up those beautiful colours. And honestly, these pigments are stunning, absolutely stunning. I'm going to be using them more, you'll see a lot more of these in another video I've got coming up very soon. But yeah, they're just playing a small role in this video, but you'll see them properly in another one very soon. They're so nice. Anyway, I just brushed it onto the mould, added the Aqua Cast Black, and we'll see later on how they turn out. After 2 hours, it was ready to demold. I like to leave it a little bit longer with Aqua Cast Black, and I should have had my gloves on, but I forgot. Until it's had its full 12 hours of curing time, the pigment in there will migrate to anything that touches it. So I would definitely recommend putting gloves on when handling it. Anyway, look how beautiful and black that is. No patchiness, nice and dark, just perfect. And that mould is so simple and elegant. I love it too. So yeah, I was very happy with my tray. So let's have a look at the pendants. Will the Aqua Cast Black have picked up that colour? Pretty much. There was still some left on the mould, but that's picked up most of the colour there. And it was hard to see. I was trying to get it on camera, how that beautiful pigment shows up differently in different lights. But yeah, it is better in real life. And actually, it is better with epoxy resin, which you'll see in my next video that's coming up. But yeah, these are gorgeous, and I did add some of my Seashell Veneer onto that off camera, but you'll see it all finished at the end. So it's time for the decoration, and once again I'm using my Seashell Veneer from Laura's Art Corner, which is absolutely amazing. I'm in love with this stuff, as you might have guessed if you've seen my other videos. I actually watched a video on how they make this, and the process is painstaking. They take feathers of seashell, very, very fine pieces, and make them into these big sheets. But it's such an intricate job to make them. Honestly, you wouldn't believe the time that goes into making these. So it is expensive, but it's definitely, definitely worth paying the price for it, because it just transforms anything that you use it on. And yeah, that's the reason why it's expensive. And I don't think Laura makes any profit on it really because of that. I took my bendy ruler and put it around the inside of the tray so that I could see what the curve was like, and then I drew around that curve onto my veneer so that I could see what I was working with. Once I'd drawn the curve, I just cut it out with my scissors. Next, I drew my vertical lines, starting wide and getting smaller quite gradually. Next, I cut out the strips using a sharp craft knife and my ruler. Okay, so now I had my strips and it was time to start cutting my little squares and applying them to the tray. So first I peeled back the backing that protects the sticky side, just a little bit, not all the way, just so I wasn't touching the stickiness with my fingers, and bit by bit I cut the pieces off and stuck them on with the help of some tweezers, leaving a little bit of space in between to get that mosaic effect. I haven't filmed all of it because it took me a long time, and I'm not complaining about that. I really enjoyed sitting there for a long time creating my design, and in the end I loved how it looked. So here it is when that part was finished, and I think it looks great. If you can imagine it soon when it's got epoxy resin on top, it will look even better. But yeah, I was happy with that. It kind of reminded me of mountains. And so yeah, I think it looks good. But I decided it looked unfinished. I wanted to go all the way around the rim of the trinket tray. So I did the same thing again with small squares going all the way around. And I think that made the world of difference. So once that was done, I needed to protect that edge, and I decided to use high viscosity UV resin so that it would stay in place. But I just did one section at a time. It was a very sunny day and the light was streaming through the windows, and when you're using UV resin, it does tend to cure in the sunlight if you're not quick. And so yeah, I didn't mind it curing as long as I'd had time to get it all into position right up to the edges. So that's why I did a little bit at a time before even getting my UV lamp out. Yeah, so I did the whole of the edge before curing it with my UV lamp. Okay, so once that was done, it was time to add the epoxy resin. I've already mixed it up. I'm using Ultracast XT from Elichem Resins. Don't worry about the bubbles, you can get rid of those easily. So yeah, the reason I used this resin is because at this stage I wasn't sure what I would be using this tray for, and so I thought, well, let's make it heat resistant just in case it ends up being used for anything hot being placed on it. And so yeah, Ultracast XT has a really good heat resistance, and it's great for coasters and things like that. It's also very hard wearing and scratch resistant, which is good if I'm just going to use it as a trinket tray, which is what it's for at the end of the day. And so the reason I said don't worry about the bubbles is because I'd poured it very thin. This is just going to be like a coating. I didn't want to lose the depth of the tray. You know, obviously I would lose a bit of the depth, but I wanted to use the smallest amount of resin as I could possibly get away with. That's why I'm carefully rolling it around until it's all covered. But it was a little bit patchy, so I added just a little bit more. And then once it's completely covered, you can use a heat gun or a torch to get rid of any bubbles, and then just leave it to cure. One thing I should have done with mine, which I didn't, was to cover it up. I just completely forgot. When something's very, very black like this, it shows up any little speck or air bubble or anything that's on the surface of your resin. And so yeah, it wasn't a perfect finish because I didn't cover it, but it still looked beautiful. Let's have a look at it finished. Actually not quite finished. I still needed to add my wax to the exposed aquacast to seal it. I'm using Clark's stone and concrete wax with a microfiber cloth and just rubbing it into all the exposed aquacast that hasn't been covered with resin, and that gives it a beautiful sheen. It protects it, and it also makes the black even blacker. So as I'm doing that, you get a good view of it. You get to see how beautiful it looks. The resin really brought out the colours in the Seashell Veneer. And yeah, they really pop against the black, don't they? And the black aquacast looks gorgeous. I'm very happy with that. And the weight of it is very nice. It feels like quality. When you pick it up and it's quite heavy, it makes all the difference in the world. So one of my videos wouldn't be one of my videos without a few arty shots at the end, even though you've already seen it quite well. I'm loving how it turned out. The Aqua Cast Black is just amazing. I'm in love with that stuff, and with the resin on top, it finishes it off so nicely. The Seashell Veneer really makes this project, and I would highly recommend that. I will leave the links and discount codes to everything that I've used today in the video description. Well, we've come to the end of another video. If you've enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up because that helps me so much. Subscribe if you would like to, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.